Our specialty for years has been stretch forming, where we grab on each end of a piece of metal, elongate it, and wrap it around a stationary form block. What we've grown into is multiple methods of forming, being hot forming, hot joggle, radial draw forming, compression bending, tube bending, and we've since expanded that into machining as well. Historically, we had just farmed out. We have LTAs for several hundred part numbers for OEMs, and we would farm out all of the machining. And it came to a point to where we were spending a lot of time having to sort through receiving inspection, rejecting parts, spending time and money on materials that were being rejected from our current supplier. So it became advantageous for us to invest and bring that machining in-house. So what we did is we talked to shops as well as machine tool suppliers as far as what type of machine would best fit our needs, being that the majority of what we're machining is curved as opposed to your typical straights where you get a plate or an extrusion, put it on the machine, press button and go. We have curves which could go from 2 foot to 45 foot, and we have to have the machine center which would accommodate all of that.
The features of the Mazak that we really appreciate is obviously the repeatability and dependability. We see that in both machines, the VTC 200C and 200G. The stationary table gives us a lot of advantages when we bring in larger parts that we don't want flinging around all over the shop. And then we appreciate the large tool carriage. You know, we can load that thing up and we can have these long, extensive programs, and we can run all sorts of tools through one setup at one time. The size of the VTC 200G has really given us opportunities to cut lead times on parts almost in half, where we were indexing on smaller. Now we can run things all at once. And the accuracy of it's been incredible. And at control level and operationally, we can sit at the machine and almost write complete programs without ever having to walk away from it, which has always been a big bonus.
What we're able to do now is the same customer we would just sell a curve to, we're able to curve, machine, paint. So what it's doing is it's increasing our sales to our existing client base, as well as opening different markets for us. So it's twofold.
We've been able to bring in lots of different types of parts. We've come from aerospace and curves and straights and all the way up to architectural. So when we have a lot of other machinists and people with industry knowledge of machining come in, I think there's some surprise about what we can get out of the machine. When we are running, let's say aerospace for example, it's the exact same fixture for every single part configuration that comes through. So we have one setup and we can run as many part numbers as we can bring in-house. And that speaks to our setup and the way that we go about it as well, but the machine provides us with the capability to set it up once, forget about it, and just run parts. Obviously, a cycle time is going to depend on the part in it. I think everybody knows that. But we see a lot of our smaller aerospace stringers that can get full top cap contouring and hole placements in under 3 minutes. Whereas before, if we were going to do that in-house, as opposed to farming it out, if we're going to do it in-house with a drill blanket and a router, you'd be looking at 25 minutes to a part, something like that.
To put in perspective, what would take us 4 weeks to send out 20 part numbers, say 10 of each, to supply chain, we can now, when we brought the Mazaks in-house, we can put those parts on the Mazaks and produce those 20 part numbers within just a couple of days at less than what we'd pay for them going out.
We've had a lot of communication back and forth with Mazak when we get into trouble and we're not really sure how to get out of it. There's been a lot of expertise that we can rely on, both from a setup and design standpoint to how can we get the machine to do what we want to do. Because we have an idea of how we want to remove the material, but we don't always know how to get that out of the machine. And working with Mazak and the application engineers has been just an incredible help to us.
What we're looking at is adding one Mazak a year, hopefully year over end. Because as we bring in each additional Mazak, we're basically running to capacity already. So if we continue that trend, we'll fill the place up with machining centers.